guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Kristen and today we're doing 30 plus thrift DIYs. This first one, I found this palette sign from a yard sale, sanded it down, painted it white, and then I'm going to be adding this rub-on transfer. I love these ones. These are redesigned by Prima and I will link them in the description box. I think you can get them off their website. I prefer Amazon because they come a lot faster when you have Prime. And then I'm just adding some greenery and this burlap bow. And I love finding burlap bows from Amazon. They seem to be pretty inexpensive unless you can find something on clearance. So going on to this little jar, this was from either a yard sale or Goodwill. I'm not going to keep repeating that because everything came from a Goodwill or a yard sale. I'm just using this transfer. This is from Amazon as well, using some chalk paste, and then I just love the way these look, and they really make a thrift item that was going to be a garbage pretty high end. You can put whatever you want in this, candy, hide it from your kids. I think that would be perfect for this. This next one, I found this pig sign, $2 from a yard sale, and I really liked it the way it was, so I really didn't want to do anything crazy with it, but that back side was not going to work, so I just added some scrapbook paper to it, another rub-on transfer, and this is from the same pack as the previous one or the first one I just did, and this is cute. It is definitely my style without that ugly background. Maybe it's not ugly, but love these canisters. These are one of my favorite Goodwill finds, and I still actually have these. I paid $6.29 for the both of them, and these were from Goodwill, like when they had good prices once upon a time. So I'm just sitting on the floor doing this, and I am using these rub-on transfers. These are from Dixie Belle, and I actually just bought another pack. I have done so many DIYs and crafts with these rub-on transfers. This will be my third pack. So they're on sale. When I ordered them, they were only $10, which is a steal. I'm using some acetone to take off that L because that was just not going to work for me. Adding another one of those rub-on transfers from that Dixie Belle pack, and I have the cutest farmhouse canisters. Next to DIY, I want to share with you guys how easy it is to flip furniture. Now, I know some people don't love doing furniture, but this little table is a start. So I started off with this Kills chalk paint, and let's be honest, the Kills chalk paint is the absolute worst. Do not waste your money. I grabbed this for I think like $6 or on clearance from Walmart. It is the worst paint I've ever used. It does not cover well, although it looks like it does. Like I would use this more for a primer than anything else because this was just not working in my favor whatsoever. So I spent so much time doing this, and then I think I did a second coat, and it still was just, it wasn't working. It was absolutely insane how bad it was. So I ended up using this moss green spray paint to end up spray painting this, and I am so glad that I did. It worked way better, and it covered with just one coat of spray paint. Any chance I get to use Chalkature, I'm going to go ahead and use it. I have used this Farm Charm transfer so many different times, and I was just really trying to get it right on there, and I just love using it. Chalkature, I think it is one of the most easiest things to use, and it just makes projects look so high end. And I mean, I feel like I explain myself every time I use Chalkature, but I just really love it, and I think if I love something, then I want to talk about it. My favorite part is the reveal, hands down, seeing how perfect everything looks. And if it's not 100% perfect, you can always take a little Q-tip and kind of rub off some of the excess paint, but I would say like 90% of the time, it always looks amazing. Time I go to a yard sale or if I go to Goodwill, I always check out a good frame. So I love buying signs and frames, but I really like to look around the frame to see what it looks like, because I would honestly rather just paint the inside of a sign and keep the frame as is. And these ones were so cute. They look just like Farmhouse. So right here, I am just adding some of these ribbon transfers. These ones are from that Dixie Belle roll. You get so many, you can make so many projects. Normally they're $25. Right now, I think they're only $10. I mean, don't quote me on that because you never know when sales are going to end with a company, but they're usually $25. And realistically, I think it's a great deal still. Yes, on the pricey side, but when you can make like 10 or 15 projects, then I think that is a great deal, especially when you buy thrifted or yard sale items. But I decided to add these cotton stems. I think this looks absolutely beautiful. I decided to go ahead and use this Walmart rooster. I'm going to go ahead and paint this red. This is the Crimson color by a Waverly chalk paint, but honestly, any red will do. So going to go ahead and paint this little guy. I love being able to mix things up with thrifted decor as well. So when I thrift something, it's not like you 100% have to use something that is thrifted. I also like doing that with Dollar Tree. I love buying Dollar Tree items, but I don't want to 100% always use Dollar Tree items, because sometimes you can find some just amazing other things to go along with those items. I found this sign or this picture frame, and I'm just going to be gluing this rooster right to the center. And I did dry brush it a little bit with some white just to give it a little bit of extra. And then of course we have to add that little gingham bow, which is also from Amazon. Up is this little magazine rack. Possibly you could really add anything you wanted to this, or some books. The first thing I did to this little holder was fill in those holes. I am not going to hang it up, at least that way. So I did want to fill in those little holes. There was one at the bottom as well, a little good old wood filler, and sand it down and you're good to go. I did end up painting this a different color. I did love the white, but as I was trying to kind of touch everything up, it just was not working out in my favor whatsoever. Sometimes things do not go the way that you anticipate and plan. So I love this color, so it didn't really bother me at all. This is the color Moss by Waverly, and I just painted the whole thing. And I know some people, I think I drive people nuts when they watch me paint, because sometimes I use some really tiny paintbrushes, and it's really just what I prefer. Like, yeah, I can use a larger paintbrush for this, but I don't know. I have a good relationship with tiny paintbrushes. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish painting this entire thing with the color Moss. Finish this little guy off. I did take some sandpaper and try to sand some of the edges down, and then I realized that what is underneath this is white paint. It's not wood. So you know what? I think I just gave up after a while, because I'm like, I don't like that. Stickers from Dollar Tree always come in handy, but of course we're going to have to be adding some hot glue to add that sticker right to the center. For this next DIY, I did just sand a board down. I love finding items like this, especially when I can stain wood. It's kind of one of my favorite things to use. This is the classic gray color. This is by Minwax, which I like their stain, but I don't really think that I have ever found a stain I did not like. This little wreath was $3 from a yard sale, and I am just using this transfer. This is a silkscreen transfer, and this was actually from Michael's a while ago. I use this one a lot. I think I've had this one for a couple years, and I think I have done this farmhouse transfer at least a dozen times. And when I really mean a dozen times, like not 4 or 5, probably a dozen. But I put farm at the top, house at the bottom, and this little like greenery transfer. Is it greenery? A little weed that came from the same pack. And I just decided to add that around the top of the farm and the bottom of the house, or on the side of the house, on the top of the farm, whichever way you have it. But I just added those on, and I love this piece. This wreath did fall off, I'm not going to lie, and just E6000 that bad boy, because it is metal and it will stay on forever. Like, don't always use hot glue unless you want things temporary. Unless it's Dollar Tree wood. That stuff like never comes off Dollar Tree wood. For this one, this actually had a Santa Claus in the center, and it probably took me years to actually rip the Santa off. I think I had to have my husband help me. But the blue, I was just not having it. Maybe in my primitive days, I would have absolutely loved that. But of course, we're going to go ahead and paint this one white. And then I am just going to sand it. Obviously, the sanding was not in my favor, so I went ahead and did some dry brushing. Now, keep this in mind, you guys. This is a compilation, so I have done all of these pieces within the last few years. They are just my favorites and ones that I kind of still have hanging around my home. This gather sign I thought would look perfect in the center of this window, and I put the window on the side. This greenery is from Walmart. I love Walmart's greenery, although I don't like being a negative Nancy, or I don't even like saying that because so many people on here are named Nancy. I don't like being negative, but like Walmart is really like, their florals are not as good as it used to be. And it's so empty and it's so sad because, I mean, where do I buy florals that are like this cute? So then I also added a burlap flower. This is also from good old Amazon. And this is what this little sign looks like, this little window. I think it is adorable. All right, we're going to be making some faux books. I obviously already used this one and did not like it. I think I actually used all of them and painted them white. But we're going to add a little bit of color to the decor, which does not happen very often. And when it does, it's kind of green. I think it's always green. Green or black or white. Sometimes pink. But those are the kind of colors that I usually go for. We got the color moss. This is the color celery by Waverly Chalk Paint. And I just went ahead and painted the whole thing. You're really only going to see the sides anyways. I did keep one white. This is a silkscreen transfer, and this one is from Amazon. And as much as I love Chalk Couture, I will talk about it all day long, as you guys already know. But they do have different and other options besides that. Sometimes they don't have all the farmhouse stencils that I would prefer or want, so I have to go to Amazon for some. Fresh from the farm. I love this one, and I did put it on the side just a little bit, so I was able to wrap some twine around the edges as well. And what else did I do to this? I think that's it, because we keep things pretty simple. Ooh, I added a bow. What do you know? That bow is from Burlap Fabric. I have not been on that website in so long, but they have a lot of really cute burlap items. All right, so let's talk about something else and move on from the books. This little well wishes for the Mr. and Mrs. I'm sorry to all the people that spend all this money for one day or just a few hours, but like you spent $20 on this box and you sold it for $2 at a yard sale. I don't know. I did not have a fancy wedding, so that was just not in my plans. Like we saved so much money not doing that. We had a little tiny reception out in our backyard. We got married at the courthouse, and my husband and I, we are still so happy that we did that. We did not spend even close to $1,000, and that makes us so happy that we did that, and we're still married. So take your well wishes box, your $20 well wishes Hobby Lobby box, and I painted it and added rub-on transfers to it, and then I probably sold it in a garage sale for $3. So take that. Hope you guys are still married. Okay, back to rub-on transfers. I'm so sorry. I got way off way off topic. These rub-on transfers are from Amazon. I do not like these. I don't think I use them after this. They have such a sticky, they're terrible. They're so sticky. And I did not even, it kind of started ripping off some of my paint, but thankfully I added 500 coats of paint. Did touch it up because it was that sticky. And then, yeah, you could have added the lid back to it. You could have added just really anything to this. I could have done anything. The possibilities are endless with a box. You could close it. You could put jewelry in this. You could put makeup in this. Or you could put flowers in this. There's just so many things. But here we go, having issues with the other rub-on transfers. I'm not even going to go into this anymore because they were tough. But this is what it looks like. I added some greenery in here and I love it. I love that vase too. That was also a thrifted find, and I just added a rub-on transfer to it. I love these. I love all rub-on transfers. You're going to see that in probably so many of my videos that I always use rub-on transfers. So this next one, Home in Black, these were perfect. I honestly still have these. I might end up doing something different with them because I just decided to paint them white and sand them down a little bit to give them a little bit of distress, and I just left them. I thought it was such a cute little addition to my hutch. I have a large hutch in my dining room that I also thrifted. I bought off of Facebook and it was $100, and I love decorating it for all seasons, but that you kind of can see some of my hutch and it's displayed there. It is so cute and I just really like that. Also, those black chickens were spray painted black, 25 cents from a garage sale. I am not ashamed to talk about my inexpensive decor. This pig from a garage sale or Goodwill. I said I wasn't going to say it, but I did. Painted it the color moss, and then now I'm just adding some Dollar Tree rub-on transfers to this. It did take a couple sheets, but I think overall this little pig turned out adorable. This next one is just a little white house from a yard sale. It had to have been probably a quarter, if not less. I'd say a quarter. It's always so weird when people put 15 cents on things and then you have to like find a dime and a nickel, which I probably have more of those than I do quarters, but it's so weird. Like if I give you $1, you're gonna have to give me 85 cents back. I don't know. I'm using some rub-on transfers. These are also from Dollar Tree. These are a while ago. I have not seen these in so long, at least a year, which is so disappointing. Dollar Tree has some really good rub-on transfers when they have them, if they have them in stock. So I just added a cute little background and then farmhouse to over the top. And I don't think I ever used rub-on transfers on top of rub-on transfers until this one right here. And it worked and it looks so cute. This little guy is a redo. It came from a yard sale. I want to say it was $1, and I painted it this terracotta color. I think it was by Arteza Paint, and I added a vinyl transfer onto this, Farm Fresh. I really just wanted to get that off, and it was just a pain. I probably could have peeled it off, but I always feel like sanding is so much easier. Now I'm going in with a color Steel. This is by Waverly, and it is a really pretty light gray. So if you're interested in something like a light gray that covers pretty well, because as you can see, I used a really dark orange, and it covered well. This is also a Chocateur silkscreen transfer, and I'm using 3 different colors for this. Normally, I just go ahead and go with my black and white. They do have a ton of other colors if you love color. I'm just the one that doesn't love color so much, so I usually stick to my roots and use the plain old boring colors like my kids like to say. But you got to work fast when it's Chocateur because you don't want that black to dry, and of course, things are going to smear. They do have some really cool like detail tools, but of course I never do anything right or never do anything per instruction, but it turned out so adorable. Outdoors and s'mores. This is the coolest little caddy, as you'd say, for your s'more stuff. I think it is so cool. Saw is so cool. This was actually given to me by my neighbor, and then now I'm just going to be using some transfers from Amazon. And like I said, I like to keep it a little bit different, but I have to say that this is some of the easiest ways to do thrifted decor, is using some transfers, rub-on transfers, silkscreen transfers, your Cricut stencils if you choose stencils over Cricut, or these silkscreen transfers. These are so cool to use because when you use them, they're sticky, and then you just rub your paste on, pull them off, wash them, flip them upside down so your sticky side is up, and when they dry, you just stick them back on the backings and they're good to go. But it just takes minutes, and I have this throughout my entire house. I would love to give you a house tour, but my house like really isn't that perfect enough for a house tour. So maybe someday down the road I'll do something like that. But for now, no. Just, I don't know. I feel like house tours are so weird these days because there's so many creepy people out there. I know like mostly people that watch my channel are not creepy at all, but there could be that one person that is. I don't know. Who's here to listen to me talk? Who's here for the crafts? Who's here to listen for me talk? I need to kind of know that in the comments below. Get too excited about this, but be excited that I only paid 25 cents for this drawer, which, I mean, should it be more money than that if you don't get the whole dresser? So I went ahead and sanded the top down, and we're just going to paint this guy. Like, I thought he would be so cute. One, it would be really cute with rub-on transfers or like a pattern of a transfer. And I didn't do that. We'll say that out loud. And then I started to only paint the front of the drawer, and then I realized I needed to paint the entire thing. The whole thing. The inside, the bottom, probably not the bottom. The inside, the top, the whole thing. It needed to be done. And then now I'm just dry brushing. This is a chip brush from Dixie Belle. Dry brushing it with the Waverly Antique Wax. Added the old handle back and some greenery, and this is adorable, and it is a really great place for the Easter Bunny to hide Easter eggs. Found a ton of these doors from a yard sale for $1 a piece, I want to say, or like 4 for $5. It was a great deal because people sell their cabinet doors for super expensive. And if you go to like not Hobby Lobby, you can get them at Hobby Lobby actually. But if you go to like Menards or Home Depot, I kept wanting to say Hobby Lobby. They're expensive for a cabinet door. I'd be replacing my cabinet doors in my kitchen all the time because I love painting. Now, once it's done being painted with white chalk paint, of course, I am outside sanding with my beautiful outdoor shoes. They were only $1 from Walmart. But of course, I needed to seal this door. I don't seal things all the time unless I feel it's necessary. I really just don't like the way it looks when it dries, to be completely honest. I think it's terrible. If you love, what is this, buffalo check, get ribbon after Christmas time. They always have it. It's super cheap, and it's so much cheaper than buying it throughout the year. But I wanted something to hang this wreath on. This wreath is from Hobby Lobby. Grab it when it's half off. It only makes it like $4.99, which is a great deal. And then I just added the ribbon and the wreath to this door, and it's cute. And it's not permanent, so if I wanted to reuse it for something else, I 100% could, which I love even more when I can reuse some of the items that I do. Since I make so many things, I do like reusing items. This is not the same cabinet door, but I could have fooled you on this one, but it really is a different one. I decided to turn this one into a little tray, which I think is a really smart idea. I have some handles. These were just some old handles that I had from our kitchen. I want to say they were probably from Menards. And now I'm just drilling holes, having a heck of a time. Obviously, I got it stuck in the cardboard there. You can see. I mean, things happen, really. I mean, and then once you, or if you screw your screw holes in right, these will fit beautifully on here, and you have a fun little centerpiece tray. I love this tray. I think it is so cute, and it was only $2, which $2 or $1. I think they were either $1 or $2. We'll never know unless you watch the old video, which I can link for you guys if you want. But I had it out for Christmas last year, and look how adorable it is. This door, we're going to go ahead and paint it moss. Maybe this is celery. It is probably moss. I'm usually always buy the Waverly chalk paint in the color moss all the time, and I just dumped it on there, which, I mean, it worked, and it just made things go by really, really fast if I'd use dump paint on top of your projects. These hooks came from Dollar Tree. Do you see, everybody? I do use Dollar Tree items in Thrift Decor, so you cannot miss my Flippin' Fridays. Normally, I have Flippin' Fridays. Today, it's not Flippin' Friday, but normally I do, but I still like to use other items besides just yard sale items. You have to use other items than just thrift things. Like, I wouldn't have found little hooks at a thrift store or a yard sale, but now I'm going to be on the lookout just in case, just to prove myself wrong that I actually can find them. But I'm just drilling them in, and this is what it looks like, and you put a little hanger on the back, and you're good to go. Hang your coats, hang a little and a quack here with a little duck sign. I didn't add anything crazy because I just kind of wanted to show you guys exactly what it looked like. This sign, this frame, this picture was $1/4 at an estate sale. I love estate sales probably just as much as anyone else does, but I like it on the last day of the sale. Not the first day, not the second day, like the last day when they're literally trying to give everything away for like 75% off. That is the time to go to an estate sale or you will just be disappointed. So I painted this white, of course, this is what it looks like. And then I am going to actually use a Dollar Tree calendar. And of course, we are going to be using the Elmer's glue stick as well. I love a good old Elmer's glue stick, and I love this calendar. It had so many cute ones, but this one spoke to me and I had to go ahead and use this one. And I just traced it and cut it down to size. And then I love when picture frames have that backing because you can just take that backing and glue your picture right to the back side. And you can always go over this and reuse this as many times as you choose. That literally just had cardboard in the back side. That's all it was, nothing crazy. And it didn't even have glass or anything. So it kind of made it easy to work with. And then I just popped this little guy right back in the frame. And you have a whole new decor piece for under $2. It's crazy and it's so cute. Picture frame was super cool as is, but I love these half wood beads. I grabbed these from Amazon, and first thing I did was cover up those holes, and it's really all I was going to do was cover up those holes. And I was like, this is actually cute, but like it's not at all. I needed to add these everywhere, so I just kept gluing the half wood beads. I will not show you every single bead, but let me know in the comments if you want to see that next time, if you want to see me add like 100 beads. And that'd probably be the entire video because it'd probably last a half hour or more. So let me know in the comments if you want a video like that. I'm totally kidding. I would never do that. That would be the worst video ever, but it would also be a little funny. But once that was done, I just added pictures of me and my girls into this frame, and I love the way it turned out. And it didn't take a ton of time, and it looks like it's like a whole new world there. Sometimes you can find some really great items that you don't have to redo. I found these really cool like Barnwood picture frames. I did have to buy some mats. They were $3.99 from Hobby Lobby, but well worth it because now I put my kids' school pictures in these frames to this day. And I love them. I think I picked them up for just a couple bucks a piece at a thrift store. And all you have to do is add the glass back, add the matte piece in, and throw pictures of your kids or whoever you want into these frames. And they turned out adorable. Shadow box is not the most appealing thing, and I think that's what you have to look for when you go to a thrift store. Or a thrift store yard sale. You don't want to buy items that you like unless, well, I take that back. I found tier trays, all the things I liked, but if you are looking to redo items, you have to think like, what else could I do, or what could I do that would make that better or work for me? Now, I tried to use some nail polish remover to get these words off. It was not working. I ended up just going ahead and using a razor blade. Yeah, it took a little bit longer, but it did the job eventually, and that's all that matters. Obviously, this blue had to go, so I just went ahead and grabbed some Elmer's glue, which I love the glue sticks, especially the purple ones. And then I just added some scrapbook paper to this. Thankfully, it was a 12 by 12 frame, which, I mean, how lucky do we get there? The scrapbook paper is from Hobby Lobby. Less house, more home. This is a silk screen transfer from Chalk Couture, and this was actually one of the first ones I ever purchased, and I love it. I think this turned out so good. I didn't have to paint the frame or do anything with that. It was already good, but I did add the scrapbook paper and a transfer. And this was only like I want to say it was only $1. I don't spend a ton of money on frames, so either it was $1 or less, but it turned out amazing, and I used items that I already had at home to use it. So I'd say it was $1. Maybe you want to add the transfer price onto it, but when you use a transfer multiple times, it doesn't count. This mirror was a little cute, a little not cute, but I had to spray paint it with this Tidal Pond Rust-Oleum chalk, and then this is what I like to do a clear coat of paint with. The spray paint of the clear coats work so much better, I feel like, than using the paintbrush and wiping it on. The streaks are a lot better. Yeah, the mirror part was just, it didn't work. It just, not everything works. So I did tape it off, and then I did paint the inside with some white chalk paint. Next, I grabbed this love sign. This was from Dollar Tree. This one popped right off, but I cannot promise you that it does that every single time because I had another one that said home. Broke it right in half as I was taking it off the little stand. Used some hot glue to glue this little love right to the center, and I love when things fit like a glove. Super cute. That is all I did for this one. This table right here has seen a better life, a better day before I took it in. This is what it looked like when I bought it from a yard sale. It was a mess. It was ugly. It was awful. It needed love. It needed something. So the first thing I did was take the top off. Thankfully, it did have some screws underneath that it was easy to take off the top. And you can always use the top for something else. It is not going back on, but this was tough. It was a lot. This is my love right here, this Bosch sander. It works amazing, has so many different settings, and it did the job. It looks like someone already started sanding this little guy down, and I just really had to finish it, or it probably would have went in the trash can later down the road. I'm watching this back, and this had to have been from quite a few years ago because those are my old outdoor shoes, which I miss them so much. Like, they literally were like my favorite shoes until I went to the beach and they got dirty. And I'm like, these have to stay outside now. I could not get this tight. I was having the worst trouble with the legs. I couldn't get it off. I couldn't get it back on. I did use a ton of wood glue and eventually it stayed on beautifully. I did start out with some white spray paint, and I want to say this was just some cheap stuff that I grabbed from the hardware store. Sometimes when you want to get stuff done, you don't want to drive all the way to Walmart when you don't live next door to a Walmart. So you just use the hardware store paint and then you realize that it is not that good and you just wasted $5 on it. So once that was done, I figured this was just a good primer coat, and then I had to paint it another color. So, of course, the other color had to be the color Moss, and this is by Waverly Chalk Paint. And the more I am looking at this paint, I'm going to retract my last statement. This is the color Celery by Waverly. It's either celery or moss for me all the time. That was done, I get to do the fun part, which is staining. For some reason, I love staining. This is the classic gray color by Min Wax, and I'm just using this and a tray. This tray is from Dollar General, and I think it's $5. So I'm just staining it, and then we're going to obviously go ahead and add a Chalk Couture silkscreen transfer. This one says the Homestead, and I'm using the color Eucalyptus and also the color Bright White for the chalk paste. And let's give this little guy the reveal he deserves, because these are always amazing when they come off. But I loved it for this tray, and like, who doesn't love a good Homestead transfer? Look at it, it's beautiful. And of course I did seal this a couple times, but this is what the tray looks like. And that is honestly what it started, was just a tray until I started tearing this table apart. I took the top off the old table, or this old table. I wanted to use this tray for the top piece, and it was perfect. It was the perfect size, like exact size. I don't know how, like I said, I get lucky sometimes because I don't always. A lot of wood glue and a lot of love, and this table turned out beautiful. Quick one. I loved this frame. I love the wood, but the tomatoes had to go. So of course I am outside sanding. It looks like it is nighttime out, and it probably was. But once I sanded that down, I did just want to go ahead and repaint it black. Now I don't know. I have a love for black decor. I think it's pretty. I do have wood trim, which I don't love, but everything else is pretty much white in the house, or at least I'm trying to make it. I just like it. That's why. But a little bit or a lot of black decor, I feel like everything just pops when it's black. My tip for the day is, if you don't like waiting for things to dry, just go ahead and use a hairdryer. It works. These are the transfers that I grabbed from Michael's. They don't sell these anymore, but they work amazing. They're kind of starting to get a little unsticky, but they still do the job. I love this farm to table one. As you can already see, I have used it before, but it fit perfect in this sign. This sign I actually still have in the dining room. I love to talk about the things that I still have, because I really do love them. I do love actually pretty much every thrift piece I have ever made, and more than likely I've sold the other pieces if I no longer have them, or I just kind of end up donating, because I make a lot of the same items. I use a lot of the same transfers, so I obviously don't want this farm to table sign in 20 parts of my home. But once this was done, this one turned out, obviously it turned out perfect. Bright white chalk paste, of course. It is my favorite. I've probably gone through 20 of these jars in the last 3 years. But the reveal is always beautiful. Here we go, a little farm to table sign. Piece right here was one of the first furniture pieces that I sold. I sold it for 20 bucks. Got it for $3.09 at Goodwill. Can you imagine buying furniture pieces like that for $3.09 nowadays at Goodwill? But yeah, I sold this at a yard sale. I was thrilled because it was broken. It was such a cute piece, but obviously like now maybe I would have kept it as is. But more than likely, no. Like, it was pretty scuffed up. Like, it's seen better days. It's not real wood by any means. So, it did need some spray paint. I loved this spray paint. It was one of my favorites. It is that Tide Coastal. It's by Rust-Oleum chalk paint. It is so pretty. Maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's, I don't even know what it's called. You've seen it. We can always go back later on and look. But I love this. It only took 1 can of spray paint. And then I ended up using the good old silkscreen transfers from Chalk Couture, of course. But it was like one of the first times I used a large transfer. So the bottom did have to be this caviar color. This is by Dixie Belle. It is amazing. Took 1 coat so quick. But yeah, this was the first large Chalk Couture silkscreen transfer I've ever used. It was so confusing, so complicated. Like, we all are there. We all have to start somewhere. But I did end up, I sold this piece for 25 bucks. Now I know that it's probably on the cheaper end, but I bought it for $3.09. A can of spray paint for like $7. So I still made like a decent profit, but like that's not really, when I have garage sales, that's not what I'm really out to do, is make a huge profit. I just kind of want to get rid of things. But, you know, you've got to try to make your money back a tiny bit. Once the bottom piece was done, I did have to do this a little bit separate because you see the back side's not done. So I did have to eventually go around and do that. But I did have to clean my transfer off and wait for it to dry to go back and do that. And then the next day, I ended up doing the top piece as well. And I did just want to line this up as best as I possibly could. And you can lift these up and you can see what you did right, what you did wrong, if you need to fix anything. And then right here, I am using a ton of wood glue to get that top to go back on, because this was like the biggest fear, is having this top piece lift up. So a ton of wood glue, and I set it down, and then this is what it looks like when it is done. I think it kind of gives like a good little vintage vibe. Also because the table is probably a little bit older than I thought, although I know for sure it was not 100% real wood, because when I was when I was sanding it down, there was just no raw wood underneath. So, and that's why I painted it. But I absolutely love this like two-tone table. I think this turned out great. So for this, I am just spray painting these chickens. I already just mentioned these when I was styling that home piece, but all I did was take these chickens and just spray painted them black, and they turned out amazing. And I love being able to redo thrifted items like this when it doesn't take a lot, but just a little bit of spray paint and it's good to go. So a little, a couple coats of this, kind of got to turn it around, do it again. But overall, I think it's great. I love the matte spray paint, and that is what I will stick to versus glossy. Unless glossy is necessary, but honestly, I don't think so. But this is what it looks like when they're done, and I think these little guys turned out so good. And if you want a couple hour project, then this is something to definitely start with. Also love finding smaller furniture pieces like this. I think I picked this up for $1, and I knew that somewhere along the lines, yes, this looks terrible looking, but I knew it had some good bones and I would be able to do something cute with this. And of course, you can never go wrong with a little stool, especially if you have kids and they want to bake or even just brush their teeth and you need a little stool. When you pick something like this up for $1, it's not bad. Or if you just want to put a plant on it, if you don't have kids or your kids are all grown up, you can always stick a little plant on here, or even like on a shelf for some elevation for some home decor. Decided to stain the top of this, and then now I'm going in with some Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory, and I'm going to go ahead and just paint the bottom of this stool. Now to finish off this stool, of course, I had to use a good old Chalk Couture silkscreen transfer. This is one of the first ones I ever had, so this is quite a few years old, so I don't think that they have this one anymore. I haven't seen it in a really long time. Sometimes Chalk Couture does come back with some older transfers, but this one I have not seen in a while. I'm pretty sure you could always check Amazon for something similar to this, since they have a lot of great farmhouse silkscreen transfers. And then I'm just using the color Bright White. This is the Chalk Couture chalk paste. And I do have a lot of questions about if you can use chalk paint with silkscreen transfers, and I want to say yes, you can. I know people do, but the paint just dries so quick. I would be scared to ruin my transfer in any sort of way, so at least the paste, it doesn't dry as fast as a chalk paint. So I just stick with the good old chalk paste. I don't want to ruin my transfers. They are pricey, so but you can do it. So if you don't want to buy the chalk paste, but I will tell you what, if you do buy the jars from Chalk Couture, a little bit goes a long way, and you can do so many projects with them. You could do even like 3 or 4 large projects with them, and you would still have plenty of paste left over. But this is what this little stool looks like when it is done, and I think for $1, it's not too bad. This is one of my favorite pieces. I want to say this was only $2 for this very large cabinet door, or even just a door. Maybe it's not for a cabinet. And I am just staining this, and I want to say this is in, I honestly don't know what color this is. I only use a few different colors, so this could be dark walnut, or I know it's not classic gray. I don't use a ton. Maybe it is classic gray. I don't use a ton of different stains. I kind of like to know what I know and use what I like. This general store transfer is also from Chalk Couture, and you're going to see like a pattern here with silkscreen transfers. And if, like I said, if you're not into this, you can always just go with the good old stencils. I know they're cheaper, and if that's the way that works for you, but this is strictly inspiration for you to figure out what you could do with some thrifted items. So it doesn't really matter what you use or what I use, strictly for inspiration. But this general store transfer is one of my favorites. I've probably used this more than a dozen times on a dozen different projects. So it was a little bit smaller of a transfer for this, but I still think it turned out so cute. So I grabbed these handles from Amazon, and I'm just going to drill these in the sides, of course, measure so they are the same. I kind of just measure the middle and kind of work from there and eyeball it. Also dry brushing this with some white chalk paint, and you have the cutest piece. And like I said, only for a couple bucks, you cannot go wrong. Next piece was my cheapest furniture find I ever found. So it is not the best quality. It is more like a laminate piece, but I mean, it does work. So, I mean, if you do need a table, then this would be it for you. This was only 25 cents. I decided to go ahead and roll this, and I want to say this is with just some Rust-Oleum chalk paint. I don't love Rust-Oleum chalk paint. I don't love it. Like, I would just rather use my little bottles of chalk paint, but to each their own, right? So this is the Dixie Belle paint in the color Hurricane Gray, and I just decided to go ahead and paint the bottoms. I didn't really have to sand anything down. This really wasn't the worst piece ever, which I kind of like when I don't have to sand anything and I can just go with it. And with the Dixie Belle chalk paint, it's a mineral chalk paint, so you really don't have to sand. I mean, you do, but you don't have to sand if you choose not to. It kind of just goes so well. I would say maybe with like lighter paints you may want to, but it's really not necessary. At least I don't think so. I am also just dry brushing the bottom just so it kind of like it just didn't look right with the top for whatever reason. So I decided to dry brush just to make it look more together and like this is what it was supposed to look like before I ruined it. I'd say ruined it, but I didn't ruin it. I think it looks great. But before I painted it, some people will say, I can't believe you painted that, but I love it. Of course, we're stepping back in with that Farm Charm Chocolate Silkscreen Transfer. This is one of my favorites. I actually just recently used this in a video, I want to say maybe a couple weeks ago for Flippin' Friday, and I just love it. It did come with these farm animals, and I'm just putting them on each side. I think a cool thing about using transfers or stencils or any sort is that you can make them your own. So just because they are put together in a certain way in the package doesn't mean that you can't cut them apart and do as you wish. I am using a gray chalk paste, which is a little abnormal from my good old like eucalyptus and black and white paste. And you can see this is an older video. I do not have carpet in my craft room anymore, which is kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. And I also do not have this rug anymore, thankfully. I did not like this rug. But this is what it looks like when it is done. And I think this turned out great. I ended up selling this in a yard sale too. And I sold it pretty inexpensive because I only paid $1/4 for it. And I really just love redoing furniture. I think this one looks so good. Next one is this older sign. I did end up having to sand it down because it did have a lot of paper over the top. So when I sanded it, it was just a mess. I don't know if you've ever sanded paper down. You might as well wet everything down and then like take not a spatula. I can't think of what it's called. Like a putty knife and like get the paper off. It might actually work a little bit better and it might be less messy. I am just painting this gray and then we're going to be using yet again a transfer. I love this one. They actually are selling this one again on Chalk Tour's website I saw, which is amazing because I feel like that sometimes they don't have a good variety. I think I've said this earlier in the video that they don't usually have a good farmhouse options. So it's kind of nice to see them bring a lot of those back. And then right now I'm just smoothing this out to make sure there is no bumps. And also this Mercantile transfer. These are like some of my first Chocolate Tour transfers. So, I mean, sometimes I was messing up a little bit because, I mean, nobody's perfect and you're not going to get them right all the time. But these turned out really good for, I want to say this was like probably my 4th or 5th transfer I owned. But I think this turned out really good. I'm using the bright white chalk paste and 2 different transfers. I was trying to sand this down to start with, and then I realized that I just need to give it a good old dry brush, and I think that this always makes everything better and just kind of blend more. So I mean, this is completely optional, but I just love doing it, and I think I probably have a lot of these pieces in my home that are dry brushed. I love looking back on this video right here. It's kind of just like bringing back so many memories. I made a faux stain. You just add some paint, and it can be acrylic paint, it can be chalk paint, whatever you choose, and some water. So less water for a darker stain, more water for a lighter stain, and I'm just doing the base of this. And of course, this is another wedding sign, the guest book sign that someone only used one time. But I mean, I'm glad people buy that stuff so that I can buy it for cheap and redo it. I think that's great, right? Another transfer, I love this one so much. But this is also one of my favorites because I have an old scale that looks very similar to this. So I just love this one. I think I used this transfer like 5 or 6 times. And you know what? Seeing this video makes me kind of want to just get it back out and do something different. But this is the same thing. Gonna use some velvet chalk paste and put this on, and I'll just end up showing you the reveal of this because my favorite is pulling back those transfers. This one, I found this frame or this piece. Maybe it's not really a frame. It was only 50 cents at a yard sale, which, I mean, you cannot get any prices better than yard sale prices unless they think their garage sale is like made of treasures. But 50 cents, I'm using some Martha Stewart paint. I picked this up on clearance years ago from Michael's, and I loved this. I used it till it was gone. I don't even think they make it anymore. I haven't even looked, but I used this till it was gone. I loved the color of it. Now I am just dry brushing in the white chalk paint, of course. And normally I don't love hearts on things. They're just so like, oh man, what is that catalog? I feel like there's like a catalog for all the heart things. And then I just put a picture of my girls in this, and I actually ended up giving this to my grandma, which she loved. And that was it. So sometimes you can just paint things you don't even have to add a transfer to, which maybe I'll learn that somewhere down the line, down the road, probably never. But you guys, that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to my channel, I would love if you consider sticking around and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.